unexpected signatures. The courthouse in Millfield was quaint compared to the glass and steel architecture Jackson Reeves typically surrounded himself with in San Francisco. At 34, Jackson had built Horizon Technologies into a billion-dollar company, but today he was simply here as a witness for his childhood friend Thomas's wedding. "Sign here," the clerk muttered, sliding a document across the counter without looking up from her computer. Jackson scribbled his signature where indicated. Assuming it was just another witness form, he checked his watch. He had a video conference. "In an hour with investors in Tokyo." "Congratulations," the clerk said mechanically, finally looking up. "You're officially married." Jackson froze. "Excuse me? I'm not getting married today. You just signed the marriage certificate." The clerk frowned, pointing to the form. "There's been a mistake. I'm just a witness for my friend's wedding." The clerk squinted at the paperwork. "This certificate lists Jackson Reeves and Olivia Winters." "Who is Olivia Winters?" Jackson demanded, as if summoned by her name. A woman rushed through the courthouse doors, her dark hair tumbling out of a hasty ponytail. Chef's coat partially visible beneath her jacket. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she said breathlessly to the clerk. "Has Nathan arrived yet?" The clerk looked confused. "I have no appointment for Nathan today. But I do have," she glanced at Jackson, then back at the woman and Olivia Winters.
"That's
"Me," she confirmed, then noticed Jackson for the first time. "Who are you?" "Apparently your husband," Jackson said dryly. Olivia's eyes widened. What? 30 minutes and several heated phone calls later, they pieced together what had happened? Nathan, Olivia's boyfriend, had promised to marry her so she could secure her green card. But he'd sent his friend to fill out preliminary paperwork using Jackson's name as a placeholder, intending to go through with it. Meanwhile, Thomas had played what he thought was a harmless prank, putting Jackson's name on his own marriage forms to avoid paparazzi attention. The result? A bureaucratic perfect storm where Jackson and Olivia were now legally bound. "This is absurd." Jackson paced the small consultation room. "I'll have my lawyers file for an annulment immediately." "Please," Olivia said, eyes rimmed red. "I need this green card. I've been building my career here for 5 years. Phone buzzed incessantly. His assistant's text read, "TMZ calling for comment on your secret wedding. Stock dipping. PR team in panic." Jackson closed his eyes. A messy annulment would create exactly the kind of media circus he'd been avoiding. His company was weeks away from a crucial product launch. 6 months, he said finally. "We stay married for 6 months. My lawyers create an ironclad agreement. You get your green card. I avoid a PR nightmare." Olivia studied him. "I want something else too." "Money?" Jackson asked reflexively. She shook her head. "I need a business loan for my restaurant. I've been saving for years, but..." "Fine," Jackson interrupted. "We need to make this look convincing." Olivia extended her hand, her expression resolute. "Deal." Jackson shook it, never imagining how completely this accidental signature would transform his carefully controlled life. "Reluctant arrangements, your new husband is here," called Gwen, Olivia's roommate and sous chef, peering through the blinds of their modest apartment. Olivia glanced up from her recipe notebook. "He's not my husband. He's my administrative error." Outside. Jackson waited beside a sleek black Audi, phone pressed to his ear, looking as out of place in this neighborhood as a peacock in a chicken coop. His tailored suit probably cost more than Olivia's monthly rent. "Remember?" Olivia told Gwen as she gathered her overnight bag. "This is strictly business." "A business arrangement where you live in his penthouse half the week?" Gwen raised an eyebrow. "Just be careful, Liv. Men like him see people as assets or liabilities." Olivia steeled herself before stepping outside. The agreement they'd signed. Yesterday was clear. They would maintain appearances as newlyweds, splitting time between their residences, attending necessary public events together, and following a carefully crafted narrative about their whirlwind romance. "Ready, Jackson?" asked, ending his call without waiting for her response. He opened the passenger door and gestured for her. To get in, the drive to his penthouse was silent until Jackson cleared his throat. "My assistant prepared the guest suite for you. I've arranged for a stylist to bring some appropriate options. For Friday's charity gala..." "I have clothes," Olivia said. Jackson's eyes remained fixed on the road. The event requires a certain ... standard. You mean your fake wife can't show up looking like a waitress? Olivia challenged. His jaw tightened. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. The penthouse was exactly what she expected. Minimalist, expensive, and impersonal. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased San Francisco's skyline, but there were no family. Photos? No personal touches? Does anyone actually live here? Olivia murmured. Jackson, standing at a digital panel adjusting the climate settings, glanced at her. I do. No, you exist here. Oh, there's a difference. Before he could respond, his phone rang again. He excused himself to take the call, leaving Olivia alone in the vast living room. Over the next 2 weeks, they settled into an uncomfortable rhythm. Olivia worked her shifts at Bellini's, the high-end restaurant where she was sous chef, while Jackson buried himself in his company. They barely crossed paths, even when staying in the same residence. Their first test came at the charity gala. Olivia wore a midnight blue gown selected by the stylist Telegant, but far more revealing than her usual attire. When she emerged from the guest suite, Jackson's usual mask of indifference slipped momentarily. You look ... he started, then seemed to recalibrate, suitable. The event was a blur of introductions and practiced smiles. Jackson kept his hand at the small of her back, leaning in occasionally to whisper context about whoever they were speaking with. That's Senator William Zann. The Technology Regulation Committee, the woman in red is technology editor for the Chronicle. Olivia played her part, sharing their fabricated meeting story about bumping into each other at a farmer's market where she was sourcing ingredients. Later, as they sipped champagne, a silver-haired man approached. Jackson didn't believe the rumors until now. Never thought you'd be the type to settle down. Richard, this is my wife Olivia, Jackson said smoothly. Quite a departure from your usual type, Richard commented, his gaze lingering inappropriately on Olivia. Before Jackson could respond, Olivia interjected, and what type would that be? Richard chuckled. Oh, you know, the model/influencer. Variety. Beautiful. But he twirled his finger near his temple. How fortunate that Jackson's tastes have matured. Olivia replied with a sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes. After Richard left, Jackson looked at her with something resembling respect. You didn't have to defend me. I wasn't defending you, Olivia said. I was defending myself. That night, returning to the penthouse, something had shifted between them, not exactly warmth, but perhaps a grudging recognition. As they stood in the elevator, Jackson unexpectedly said, I approved your business loan today. The paperwork is on the kitchen counter. Olivia looked up, startled. Thank you. It's just business, he replied, but his eyes lingered on hers a moment longer than necessary. Crossing boundaries, this is not saffron, Olivia declared, holding up the small glass jar she'd found in Jackson's barely used kitchen. This is turmeric, with food coloring. Jackson looked up from his laptop. Is there a difference? Is there? Olivia pressed her lips together, shaking her head. You paid $80 for counterfeit spice. It was month 3 of their arrangement, and Olivia had gradually begun leaving her mark on Jackson's sterile penthouse. Fresh herbs grew in small pots along the windowsill. Cookbooks appeared on shelves. The refrigerator, once a wasteland of protein shakes and takeout containers, now held actual ingredients. Tonight, she'd decided to cook, claiming she couldn't stand watching him subsist on delivery food for another evening. You don't need to feed me, Jackson said, though he'd already closed his laptop, watching as she moved confidently through his kitchen. Consider it rent, Olivia replied, chopping vegetables with practiced precision. Besides, you can't properly evaluate my restaurant concept without tasting my food. The real saffron risotto she prepared that night was the first home-cooked meal Jackson had eaten in his penthouse since moving in 3 years ago. He tried to maintain his usual detachment, but Olivia caught the moment his expression changed. After the first bite, surprise, followed by something deeper. This is ... double quotes. He searched for words. Yes, she prompted, secretly pleased. Unexpected, Olivia laughed. That might be the first genuine compliment you've given me. Later, as they sat on the balcony with glasses of wine, Jackson surprised her by asking about her restaurant plans. I want to create a place that honors my grandmother's Lebanese recipes. But with my own interpretations, Olivia explained, her usual guardedness softening. Food that tells a story. Your grandmother taught you to cook? Olivia nodded. After my parents died, I was 12. She saved me with those recipes. She hesitated, then added, What about you? Who taught you to survive? Jackson's gaze shifted. To the city lights. Myself, mostly. Explains a lot, Olivia murmured. Instead of bristling, Jackson smiled faintly. My father believed vulnerability was weakness. Success was the only acceptable outcome. Is that why Horizon is everything? To you. It's not everything, he said, but his tone lacked conviction. The following week brought an unexpected development. Olivia arrived at the penthouse to find Jackson asleep on the couch. Financial reports scattered around him, his usually perfect appearance rumpled. When she accidentally dropped a pan, he jolted awake. What time is it? He asked groggily. Just past midnight. Have you eaten anything today? He ran a hand through his hair. I'm fine. That wasn't my question. Olivia moved to the kitchen, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. You don't need to, Jackson, she interrupted firmly. Shut up and let someone take care of you for 5 minutes. Surprisingly, he did, while she prepared a simple pasta. Jackson explained the Chrysisa, potential security flaw had been discovered in there. Flagship product hours before a major update release. My team's been working non-stop, but the board is panicking. And naturally, he took responsibility for it. Fixing everything, Olivia observed, setting a plate before him. Jackson looked up, suddenly defensive. That's my job. No, your job is to lead, not to be a martyr. She sat across from him. You know what happens to chefs who try to control every dish in a busy kitchen? They burn out and the whole restaurant suffers. Cooking isn't the same. As it's exactly the same, trust your team. Delegate. Jackson studied her. You're surprisingly good at cutting through my defenses. Professional skill, Olivia replied with a slight smile. You have to know when to use the knife. The next morning, instead of rushing back to the office, Jackson made a series of calls from the penthouse, redistributing responsibilities among his executive team. When he finished, he found Olivia preparing to leave for her shift. Thank you, he said, the words still unfamiliar on his tongue. Olivia shrugged. It was just pasta. It's not for the food, Jackson said, stepping closer. For seeing what I needed before I did. Something electric passed between them, a boundary beginning to blur. Olivia was suddenly acutely aware of how close they were standing, how his eyes had softened. For a dangerous moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, she took a step back. I should go. Early prep shift. Jackson nodded, professional mask sliding back into place. Of course. But as Olivia left, she couldn't ignore the uncomfortable realization that their arrangement was becoming far more complicated than either had anticipated. Unraveling Truths, the invitation to Horizon Technologies. Annual Innovation Gala arrived with Jackson's handwritten note. Your presence requested, not as my wife, as my date. Olivia traced her fingers over the words, unsure why they affected her so strongly. Their 4-month mark had passed, and the careful distance they'd maintained was increasingly difficult to preserve. Small moments kept accumulating, his hand lingering when passing her coffee, her catching herself smiling at his rare jokes, both of them gradually occupying the same spaces rather than opposite ends of rooms. But you're playing with fire, Gwen, warned when Olivia mentioned the gala. Fake marriages don't work because people can't fake feelings forever. I'm not faking anything, Olivia insisted. I'm being practical. Practicality didn't explain why she spent hours choosing her dressa. A deep emerald gown that complemented her olive skin, or why. Her heart quickened when Jackson's eyes widened. Appreciatively, as she emerged from her room, the gala was held at Horizon's headquarters. Transformed for the evening into a showcase of cutting-edge technology. As they entered, Olivia noticed how differently Jackson moved here. This was his territory, where his confidence was most natural. You built all this, she said, watching employees and investors gravitate toward him. Jackson shook his head. It had the initial concept. These people made it real. He guided her through the exhibits, introducing her to his team with genuine pride in their accomplishments. Midway through the evening, Jackson was called away for an interview. Olivia wandered toward a quiet balcony overlooking the bay, needing a moment away from the crowd. So you're the waitress who snagged San Francisco's most eligible bachelor? Olivia turned to find a striking woman watching her with unconcealed hostility. Excuse me? Penelope Vaughn, the woman, extended a manicured hand. I'm on Horizon's board of directors. I've known Jackson since Stanford. Lovely to meet you, Olivia said politely, though Penelope's grip was unnecessarily firm. Let me be direct, Penelope continued. Whatever arrangement you have with Jackson, I suggest you reconsider. He needs someone who understands his world. Someone like you? Olivia asked quietly. Penelope smiled thinly. Someone who won't damage everything he's built. The board has concerns about his hasty marriage, I see. Olivia maintained her composure. And have you shared these concerns with Jackson? Jackson can be blinded when it comes to personal matters. It's why he's avoided serious relationships since all this unfortunate mistake. The word mistake stung more than Olivia wanted to admit. I should find my husband, she said. Emphasizing the last word, she found Jackson concluding his interview, his expression brightening when he spotted her. But before she could mention the encounter, the evening program began, culminating in Jackson's keynote speech. Watching him address the crowd, Olivia realized she'd never actually seen him in his element before. His usual reserve transformed into magnetic presence as he spoke. Passionately about technology's potential to solve humanitarian problems. This isn't just about profit margins, he concluded. It's about creating tools that enhance human connection, not replace it. The audience applauded enthusiastically. As they dispersed toward the reception, Olivia overheard a conversation between two executives. Quite the transformation in Reeves, one remarked. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have mentioned anything but quarterly projections. They'd say that. Wife of his has been a good influence, humanizing the robot as it were. Olivia slipped away, needing space to process. She found herself in Jackson's office, a space she'd never entered before. Unlike the penthouse, here were glimpses of the man behind the mogul engineering sketches. A well-worn physics textbook, a small photograph of a woman who must be his mother, invading my privacy. Jackson's voice came from the doorway, but his tone was light. Sorry, I needed somewhere quiet. He studied her expression. Something's wrong. I met Penelope Vaughn, Olivia said. She made it clear I don't belong in your world. Jackson's face darkened. Penelope has personal reasons for wanting our marriage to fail. Because she's in love with you? Because I rejected her proposal? To sell user data 3 years ago, he corrected. She's never forgiven me for choosing privacy over profit. Olivia absorbed this, then asked the question that had been troubling her. Am I damaging your company's reputation? Jackson crossed. To her, genuine concern in his eyes. Is that what she told you? She said the board has concerns about your hasty marriage. The board's approval ratings of my leadership are the highest they've been in 2 years, Jackson said. Since you? Since me? He reached for her hand, a gesture so uncharacteristic. It startled her. You were right about delegating, about balance, about ... double quotes. He hesitated, seeing people, not just assets. The vulnerability in his eyes made her breath catch. Slowly, he raised his free hand to her cheek. Our agreement ends in less than 2 months, he said softly. Olivia closed her eyes. I know, and then what? The question hung between them, neither. Ready to answer what had become increasingly obvious, somewhere between arguments and reluctant compromises. Between late-night conversations and quiet mornings, something genuine had taken root. Rewriting destiny, the envelope arrived on an unseasonably warm May morning. Its inside lay the annulment paper's stark black text on crisp white pages, awaiting their signatures. 6 months had passed since their courthouse mix-up, exactly as stipulated. In their agreement, Olivia stared at the document, a hollow feeling spreading through her chest. Tomorrow was the grand opening of her restaurant. Bait home in Arabic made possible by Jackson's loan, and she had to admit his business acumen. He'd helped refine her concept, connected her with sustainable suppliers, even rolled up his sleeves during renovations. Their charade had served its purpose. She had her green card in her restaurant. He had navigated the media storm without damage to his company. There was no logical reason to maintain their marriage, yet logic had nothing to do. the ache she felt at the thought of signing those papers. She tucked the envelope into her bag and headed to Bait for final preparations. The space hummed with activity staff training, last equipment deliveries. Gwen directing the kitchen team with cheerful authority. Everything Olivia had dreamed of was materializing before her eyes. "Has he seen it yet?" Gwen asked, joining her at the entrance. Olivia shook her head. "He's been in New York all week." She'd insisted Jackson wait until opening night, wanting him to experience the finished vision. "Did the papers come?" Olivia nodded, unable to elaborate. "Have you talked about ... Gwen gestured vaguely. "There's nothing to talk about," Olivia said. Firmly, "We had an arrangement. It's complete." Gwen squeezed her shoulder sympathetically. "For what it's worth, I've never seen two people try harder to deny the obvious." Across town, Jackson stood at his office window, staring unseeingly at the city below. The annulment papers sat on his desk, delivered by his lawyer that morning. A simple signature would restore his life to what it had been before organized. Predictable, solitary. His assistant knocked softly. "Your car's ready whenever you want to head to the airport." "Thank you, Diane. Will Mrs. Reeves be joining you for the Stockholm conference next week?" she asked. The question struck him with unexpected force. There would be no Mrs. Reeves after tomorrow. No more encountering Olivia's shoes by the door when he returned home exhausted. No more debates over films or books or whether salt belonged on the counter or in a cupboard. No more watching her face light up when she talked about her grandmother's recipes, sir, Diane prompted. "Cancel Stockholm," Jackson decided suddenly, "and get me design specs for restaurant kitchen ventilation systems." The night of Bait's opening, Olivia moved through final preparations in a daze. The restaurant looked beautiful, warm woods and copper accents, family photographs interspersed with modern art. It's an open kitchen where diners could witness the dance of preparation. An hour before opening, her staff gathered for final instructions. Olivia had just begun speaking when the door opened, revealing Jackson. Her words faltered. He approached, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I know I'm early. You're supposed to be flying to Stockholm," she said. "Plans change." This is extraordinary, Olivia." Pride momentarily overcame her conflicted emotions. "Would you like a tour?" As they walked through the space, Jackson noticed details that others might miss. How she'd arranged the flow of service. The custom spice blends labeled in her grandmother's handwriting, the carefully selected wine list. They ended in a small, private dining room, where a familiar aroma filled the air. Saffron, Jackson recognized, smiling, real saffron. "I named this dish after you," Olivia admitted, the reluctant convert. "It starts bitter but finishes sweet." Jackson's expression grew serious. "I have something for you." He reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope. Olivia's heart sank, assuming it contained the signed annulment papers. "You didn't need to bring these tonight. Open it," he insisted. Inside was not the annulment, but a DI transferring full ownership of Bait's building to her name. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Consider it a wedding present," Jackson said. "One I should have given months ago."
Hey.
"Jackson, I can't accept this." "You can, because it comes with no strings attached." His voice softened. "Whether you sign those annulment papers or not, the building is yours." Olivia studied him, searching for his usual calculated expression but finding only vulnerability. "Why would you do this?" "'Cause watching you build this place made me remember what it means to create something from passion rather than obligation." He hesitated. "And because somewhere between our arguments and compromises, I fell in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Olivia felt tears threatening. "This wasn't supposed to happen, I know." Jackson took a step closer. "We had an agreement. 6 months, mutual benefits, clean break." He gently touched her cheek. "But some contracts deserve to be broken." From her bag, Olivia withdrew the annulment papers. "I've been carrying these around all day, trying to convince myself to sign them. And I realized I don't want to go back to a life where you're not in it." She looked up at him. "I don't want to pretend anymore, not that we're married. And not that I don't love you." Jackson took the papers from her hands and deliberately tore them in half. "Then let's stop pretending." Outside, the first guests were arriving for the grand opening. Soon, Olivia would need to greet them, to launch her dream into the world. But for this moment, time suspended, as Jackson pulled her into his arms. "Accidentally made us husband and wife," he murmured against her hair. "But I'm choosing you now, with no mistakes, no arrangements, no conditions." Olivia reached up, finally allowing herself the touch she'd been denying for months, tracing the lines of his face. "I'm choosing you too." As they rejoined the bustling restaurant, Jackson's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. Begun as a clerical error had somehow written itself into something genuine. A story neither of them had planned but now couldn't imagine ending any other way. "Ready?" Jackson asked as they prepared to open Bates' doors. Olivia smiled, squeezing his hand for everything.